4 in 10 adults struggle with chronic obesity. 160 million Americans are on a diet every year. 50% of those Americans use a fad diet. Roughly $70 billion are spent every year on weight loss products. These statistics may startle you, but what do they reveal? The fact that 160 million Americans are spending $70 billion every year on weight loss reveals America's obsession with weight loss. While weight loss companies are fattening their wallets at the expense of millions of Americans, the obesity epidemic is raging on. But how do we arrive at such an obesity crisis? Let me begin by asking you a question. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a situation where a plate of food was placed in front of you and you were directed to eat everything on the plate. Have you ever wondered why your parents made you do this? Did you know that this idea of eating everything on your plate dates back to the Great Depression? During the Great Depression, food was scarce, and many Americans were left on the brink of starvation. Because of this, parents taught their children to eat everything available. In post-Depression, this idea developed into a problem of overeating. America's fixation on food continued in the 1950s with the rise of fast food. Fast food has continued to be a booming industry, as author Andy Mead states that 50% of Americans consume fast food every day. Due to its low nutrients and high calorie, fast food has only furthered the obesity epidemic. Moving closer to the early 2000s, another booming industry is the processed food industry. Foods have become more and more processed, and by that I mean they have more than one ingredient added to them that is not found in the kitchen. These ingredients include preservatives, sweeteners, artificial colors, and flavors. Because of these high-level preservatives, processed foods do not have as much nutritional value as non-processed foods, such as fruits and vegetables. In the last few years, we have seen the rise of social media and of fad dieting. In 2024, Instagram alone had over 320,000 fitness influencers. That is 320,000 different opinions on how to diet, exercise, and live a healthy life. They have popularized fad diets, which are harmful and ineffective. Now, as we stand here in 2025, I'm asking you to consider the risk of restrictive diet and if there's a better solution to the problem of obesity. Let's pause and define the term obesity. By obesity, I'm referring to a person who has abnormal fat accumulation which presents a risk to their health. When it comes to health and dieting, there are numerous different opinions on how to achieve optimal health. But we can all agree that the weight issue in America is a problem, and it needs to be solved. If it wasn't, diet companies and social media influencers would not be advertising their new, quick solutions because there would be no money in it. Secondly, we can agree that it does cost more financially to eat healthy. However, the medical cost of poor eating far outweighs the cost of buying healthy groceries now. And finally, we can agree that proper nutrition is the solution to the obesity epidemic. Maybe you're sitting here today and you've agreed with what I've said so far, but you're thinking, I'm young and healthy. This issue does not relate to me. Why is nutrition important? But let me tell you the truth of this matter. Nutrition, and by that I mean eating a healthy and balanced diet, matters because we live in a sinful and broken world. And the sad reality is that eventually your health will fail. No matter how healthy we may feel today, if we do not develop good nutritional habits, your health will fail sooner rather than later. Nutrition is important for every person, no matter their age or stage of life. And most importantly, good nutrition matters because it enables us to serve Christ more effectively in our families, churches, and communities. Today I'm going to begin by discussing the differences between special and fad dieting. We will next cover some basic nutrition information. Then I will discuss the mental and physical dangers of restrictive dieting. Finally, I will talk about cultivating a biblical, healthy relationship with food. My overall goal is to demonstrate that in order to achieve optimal health, both physically and mentally, individuals should avoid restrictive diets and instead strive after a healthy relationship with food. Before I launch into my argument, I want to address a red flag that may already be in your minds by acknowledging that in some cases, restrictive diets are necessary. Due to dietary preferences, allergies, or other medical reasons, some people may follow a diet that could be considered restrictive. I prefer to call these diets special diets, and here's why. A special diet refers to consciously selecting certain types of foods or ingredients and avoiding other types of foods or ingredients based on factors such as health benefits or personal beliefs. An example of this is diabetes. Someone who has diabetes, their body is unable to fully manage their blood sugar levels. They often follow a diabetic diet, which focuses on eating foods that promote glycemic control. Notice here, no time in this description of special diets did I mention weight loss. That is because while weight loss may be a natural side effect of special diets, it is not the end goal. The end goal of a special diet is to help people avoid the foods that hurt their body and instead eat more foods that allow their body to function at its highest potential. While we use the term diet, a special diet is a lifestyle and is healthy and beneficial. In reality, however, most people in America are not following a special diet, but a fad diet. A fad diet is not a medical term, but rather a popular or trending eating pattern that strives to quickly fix obesity. Fad diets promise rapid weight loss and present short-term, unsustainable changes by eliminating food groups. Fad diets are not a lifestyle. Special diets do have value, but in my presentation today, I'll be addressing fad diets, which I will call restrictive dieting. Now that we understand the differences between special and fad dieting, in order to begin decreasing obesity, we must first gain some basic nutrition knowledge. As part of my research, I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Juan. He is a licensed doctor of chiropractic and owns a chiropractor office in Troy, Ohio. He strongly believes and teaches that nutrition is absolutely crucial in having good health. Because if you don't give the body the correct fuel, the body cannot function efficiently or effectively. Practicing good nutrition is important because what we consume directly impacts our health. Proper nutrition includes chemical substances called nutrients, and they have three main purposes. First, they help build and maintain body tissue. Second, they help with the different processes of the body, such as digestion. And third, nutrients are the fuel and energy for the body. Knowledge of what nutrients are and how they impact our body is vital in building and maintaining a healthy diet. Now that we have a basic understanding of good nutrition, let's discuss restrictive dieting and its physical and psychological dangers. Today I will begin by discussing two of the main physical dangers of dieting, first of which being weight cycling. Diets speed up the metabolic rate, so on a diet you're able to eat more food because your body is able to burn it quicker. When the diet ends, however, the metabolic rate slows down, and therefore, like a yo-yo, the weight returns. Before going on a diet, individuals may face many health risks because of their weight. When weight cycling happens, not only does the weight return, but so does even more health risk. For successful, long-term weight loss, individuals should focus on a lifestyle change, not just a quick diet for a month or two. A second physical danger is the effect of limiting food groups, such as grains, fats, and sugars. In a study published by the International Journal of Surgery Open, author Ashna Habeeb wrote that when food groups are limited, there are higher chances of constipation, exhaustion, energy loss, hair loss of bone strength, and low immunity to illness. It also often causes uncontrollable hunger and mood fluctuations. There is not one food group that is harmful to the body. Each food group provides nutrients that allow the body to function at its highest potential. For example, grains are important because they have a good source of fiber. If you completely eliminate grains and consume no other sources of fiber, then you will struggle with digestive health, blood sugar, and cholesterol management. Likewise, cutting carbs may help you lose weight quickly, but you will experience significant energy loss, as carbohydrates are the fuel for your brain, kidneys, heart muscles, and central nervous system. Every food group can be harmful if consumed in excess, yet they each have a unique purpose in the body. Additionally, restrictive diets have several unhealthy psychological dangers, and today I want to discuss two. One psychological danger is the self-blame and shame due to the failure of diets. People who have diets fail describe feelings of guilt, self-blame, anxiety, sadness. They demonstrate fatigue and have shortened attention spans. These negative feelings can cause a person to return to unhealthy eating habits, thus creating a vicious cycle. A second mental danger is that restrictive diets may lead to eating disorders. author Georgie Kova argues that dieting remains a major precursor to disordered eating, with dieters being 5 times more likely to develop an eating disorder than those who do not diet at all. Eating disorders lead to anxiety, depression, social isolation, and distorted body image. With restrictive diets, what began as an attempt to quickly lose weight ends in a long-term battle against eating disorders. Restrictive diets are dangerous because they follow a cycle, and it starts with being unhappy with your weight or shape. To correct this, you begin a diet. This diet leads to physical and psychological restoration. Then we break the diet, and we feel guilty and confused on how to eat. Then we return to unhealthy eating habits, and the weight returns. Therefore, we end back at the beginning with being unhappy with our weight, and the cycle never ends. Rather than following a restrictive diet, individuals must focus on having a healthy relationship with food. Today, I would like to present to you with 2 steps to develop this relationship. First, change the way we view our food. And second, replace mindless eating with mindful eating. Changing the way we view our food is the first step in having a healthy relationship. Society places food in the categories of unhealthy or healthy. This is emphasized in restrictive diets where food is labeled as good, as bad, as reward, or as punishment. Instead of viewing certain foods as good or bad, we should focus on having a balanced diet. As you can see in the chart behind me, a balanced diet includes all of these different food groups, such as fruits and vegetables, whole grains, plant-based proteins, protein from meat, and water. These foods are essential for our health. Clinical dietitian Skylar Ware adds that in addition to these foods, we must remember that joy is a nutrient too, and it's okay to receive joy from the foods that we eat. If you're like me, you've probably heard your parents tell you that eating only a Pop-Tart is unhealthy or bad for you. While Pop-Tarts do have less nutritional value, this does not mean you may never enjoy Pop-Tart, but it must be consumed in moderation and after you have received a meal with the proper nutrients. By not viewing food as an enemy, but as a partner, we can cultivate a healthy relationship with our food. The next step in this relationship is replacing mindless eating with mindful eating. Mindless eating is the idea that the unconscious decisions we make about which foods to eat can have significant effects on our health. Author Jean Christeller writes in her book, The Joy of Half a Cookie, that mindless eating often leaves us unsatisfied, even emotionally empty, and at the same time, uncomfortably full. Mindless eating also keeps us in the dark about nutritional value. Mindless eating is being unaware of what foods you put in your body or how much you're consuming in one sitting. A practical example of this is watching a movie with a large tub of popcorn in your hands. As you watch the movie, you become more invested in it, and you stop focusing on eating the popcorn. Speaking from experience, by the end of the movie, the popcorn is gone, and you're often left with a stomachache. Mindless eating is also present in diets that include calorie counting. Author Georgie Skrinis observes in his book, Nutritionism, that when people have a 100-calorie apple in one hand and a 100-calorie pack of cookies in the other, they view them as the same because the calories are the same. Although people are conscious about how many calories they are consuming, they are unaware of the nutritional value of their options, thus practicing mindless eating. Mindless eating is dangerous because it develops bad habits that eventually lead to obesity. Contrary to mindless eating, mindful eating leads to the freedom to enjoy your food. Christeller defines mindful eating as deliberately paying attention to your experiences of food and eating without judgment, using the information about the nutritional value and energy of food to inform your choices of what and how much to eat. Maybe you're asking yourself, how do I practically live out this mindful eating in my everyday life as a student or as an adult? Dietitian Ware recommends her clients to follow the 80-20 principle. The 80-20 principle is where you focus on getting fruits, vegetables, fiber, protein, and healthy fats 80% of the time. And you have the other 20% of the time to enjoy and be present with the foods that we love. This 80-20 principle allows us to eat healthy, but also have the freedom to enjoy the less nutritious options. Surprisingly, Ware has found that through this 80-20 principle, and by increasing the quality of nutrition in people's lives, they find more success in following a restrictive diet. A healthy relationship with food includes mindful eating rather than mindless eating, and it is the better solution to the problem of obesity. Now that we've examined this topic from a secular standpoint, it's important as Christians we look to see what the Bible has to say about this issue. I want to encourage you that although I'm asking you to prioritize your health, I'm not asking you to make an idol out of food or your health. In Exodus 20:3-5, God commands the Israelites that they shall have no other gods before him and should not make any idols. We must be careful not to put our health before our relationship with God. Furthermore, Paul encourages us in 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 that our bodies are the temple of God, and therefore we should care for them. Pastor John Piper demonstrates this by saying that God cares for our bodies. He gave them to us. He would like them to be healthy and last a long time until he takes them. Moreover, in order to practice mindful eating, we must have self-control. Galatians 5:22-23 is a familiar passage which includes self-control. In nutrition, having self-control looks like not mindless eating or overeating. Additionally, Paul writes to the people in Corinth who have said, I have the right to do anything. The context of this verse is that the people in Corinth desire to eat foods sacrificed to the idols. But Paul responds to their statement by saying that not everything is beneficial. Paul is speaking about Christian freedom. While we have the Christian freedom to eat whatever foods make us happy, not all foods are beneficial for our health. Let me say that again. While we have the Christian freedom to eat whatever foods make us happy, not all foods are beneficial for our health. We must have discernment in which foods we are putting into our body. At the end of the day, the end goal is whether we eat or drink, we do it all for the glory of God. Therefore, let us glorify God by having a healthy relationship with food through self-control and discernment. As I draw my speech to a close, let's recap where we've been. First, we discussed the differences between special and fad dieting. Next, we discussed the physical and psychological dangers of restrictive dieting. That in turn lets us discuss the solution, a healthy relationship with food. And finally, I ended by pointing us back to Scripture to consider how we may honor God through healthy living. Now I want to point you back to where we started. I began by revealing to you the startling statistics about the obesity epidemic in America. Today, millions of Americans struggle with obesity, and billions of dollars are spent on weight loss products. These are very negative and bleak statistics, but they do not have to define us. Through good nutrition, we can tip the scales in our favor. No matter your season in life, I want to encourage you to have a healthy relationship with food in order to be fully equipped to serve Christ better. For the parents in my audience, I encourage you to have a healthy relationship. I encourage you to teach your children the importance of nutrition and by demonstrating how to have a healthy relationship with food. This could look like having your children help you prepare meals, having whole foods over processed foods available for snacks, and teaching your children about proper portion control. And to my fellow students, we are the next generation of Americans, future parents, teachers, and leaders if God wills. We have the ability, power, and I argue the responsibility to end the obesity epidemic. It begins with our choices now. You may think you have plenty of time to figure this out, but I challenge you to remember the choices you make now will impact your future health. Instead of choosing your favorite sugary drink, snack, or fast food item multiple times a week, choose them occasionally as a special treat. Instead of eating 2 slices of cake and an extra large tub of buttered popcorn, practice self-control and choose to share. I encourage us all to avoid dangerous fad diets and to begin properly fueling our body. By having a healthy relationship with food, we can experience the true freedom to eat.